Do you love squatting, but you're afraid to do it because of your knees or your back? I have great news for you. When your form and technique is on point, you not only avoid injury, but you're actually going to prevent it from happening. Before we get into this awesome squat video, make sure to hit that subscribe button. I never want you to miss another video on how to up your fitness game. I've been in the fitness industry for well over 10 years now. Most of that was spent on the gym floor, training clients of different ages and stages and with different needs. So I want to tell you an example of two of the clients that I've trained that had issues specifically with their knees or their back or both. So one of my clients, Kelly, she had a quote unquote bad back and bad knees. She always worried about these areas. She was super worried about lifting in general, especially with squatting or lunge, anything that incorporated knee flexion. Another one of my clients, Tanya, she had a very unique case. She actually had daily chronic pain from treatment she had gone through, and she had a compressed lumbar spine. So she was very limited in the sense that we couldn't do any hinging movements, no rows that were not chest supported. She couldn't do any sort of deadlifts. Even with squatting, she had to be very careful with the mechanics she was using and the load that she was using, which sounds very limiting. And all of these things do. But I'm sharing this with you because through working with clients like this, I have developed tips and tricks and my go-to training protocols that are not only going to help them avoid these injuries, but help them become stronger and not be afraid of squatting. And I want to do the same thing for you. People tend to think of strength training as this naughty thing we do when we have injuries. Like, oh no, like I'm going to do this even though I have injuries, but I shouldn't be. But it's the opposite of that. When done correctly, guys, strength training, including squats, including things that work your bad joints, are going to help those very bad joints become your strong points. So when you're doing squats gradually with the right technique, with the right warm-up, with all the things that we're going to talk about in this video today, they're going to make your knees stronger. They're going to make your hips stronger. They're going to make you an all-around better athlete. You're not going to have those daily aches and pains. So it's not something that you're doing as like a loophole, like, ooh, I shouldn't be doing this. I shouldn't be training this and my injury is not going to like it, but I'm going to do it. It is actually helping avoid that very injury. First thing I want to talk about that I just touched on earlier is warm-ups. I have a quick question for you. Is walking on the treadmill a good warm-up for squats? Okay, so if you said yes, you're actually not wrong. It can be included in a warm-up. However, it should not be the only component. Walking on the treadmill, getting any movement in is good for blood flow, which is a component of a warm-up. But let's actually talk about what a warm-up does. It primes the brain and body for movement, the movement ahead specifically. So if you're going to be doing a squat, whether it's a barbell back squat, a goblet squat, any squat variation, generally the mechanics are the same though. And either way, you should be warming up. So if you're doing that, just walking on the treadmill, you're not actually going through that movement pattern. So let's take a look at what a proper warm-up for squats would look like. So the number one thing I like to do is dynamic stretching. You do not want your muscle to be held in a lengthened position like a static stretch. So for instance, if I'm holding this is not a warm-up for squats or a stretch for my lower body, but it's just an example of a static stretch. I'm holding this stretch. We do not want to be doing that. We want to keep your muscles fluid while you're warming up. So I'm going to show you some examples here of series that I like to do prior to squatting. It doesn't need to be super precise in terms of like the timing or the number of reps. You just want to go until you really feel like your joints are lubricated and that you simply feel that you have more ease of movement. So after we do these types of things, I like to warm up the muscles that are going to be used in the squat. The best way to do this is to squat. One of my favorites being a squat hold, which I'll show you right here. So when you're doing a squat hold, this is going to get you lower and lower into that bottom position. And really that's where the movement restriction tends to come in the first place. So in your knees, especially in your ankle joint, we tend to be locked up in the hips. When you sink into your squat hold and you're really gradually getting into that position, your body is slowly releasing tension. It's becoming more comfortable. You're essentially sitting lower and lower, which is going to prime you for your actual working squats ahead. In your warm-up, you might have more specific things that you're going to be doing based on your needs. For example, if you feel like your knees need an extra warm-up, you might ease into those squat holds at the bottom. You might do more dynamic stretching that's going to involve your knee joint. So that's going to be tailored a little bit, but generally you want to start with that dynamic stretching and then you want to get into your squat holds and your activations. Activations could involve things like doing leg extensions with a band, very light, get that blood flowing in the knee like I had mentioned. It could involve doing some hip flexion, warming up your hip flexors. But the most important thing that everybody should be doing is warm-up sets. Like I said, the warm-up should be specific to the movement ahead. So besides working individual joints in your warm-up that are going to be worked in the workout, you want to simply do squats at a lighter weight than you would be doing. This is really key, guys, because if you can take a lower weight and perform that movement with excellent execution, your body can handle it safely and pain-free. It's going to prime you to add on that much more weight in your working set ultimately. So for example, with my client Kelly that I mentioned earlier, for her, she was so afraid of her knees because she got injured before when she did running all the time. That's because the structures around her knee, or the muscle rather, was not there. It wasn't strong enough. Her glutes weren't strong. Her quads weren't strong. We didn't have that support from the muscles. So we wanted to make sure that the glutes and the quads in her case were primed to support the knee and the hamstrings. So we did a lot of like leg curls, leg extensions, and most importantly, we eased into the depth in her squats and lunges. So we started off with maybe like half range in her warm-up sets with half the weight she would be using, and slowly we increased the weight and we increased the range of motion. You're one of my bad back people. Let me tell you something. You might have heard that you need to train your core in order to avoid back pain, and that's absolutely true because your core stabilizes your trunk. Your core can be thought of as not only your abdominal muscles, but your obliques, even your glutes, like your lower back, and even the mid back. So any of these muscles here, like just surrounding your trunk, they're going to support your torso. And that is what's important because when your muscles are weak and not supporting your torso, your lower back is going to take the brunt of it. So your core can really mean a lot of things. But here's what you need to remember. It's not only about doing planks and crunches and that kind of thing. You actually train your core very effectively when you are breathing properly in your compound lifts. So I'm going to show you right here what it looks like to breathe and brace. This is something that I sit, and then I want you to pretend that I'm going to come over to you and punch your belly, okay? So it sounds funny, but I want you to brace. I want you to have an iron belly. You're not going to let me punch it. Create armor by creating pressure, intra-abdominal pressure. So not only you're using your core when you do things like crunches or even like planks or any sort of ab targeted exercise, you are using it every moment that you're doing a compound lift. So in this breathing video, you can see that my abs are very much engaged. I say you want to think of your armor. So you want to breathe in deep, and then you want to hold that contraction tight, 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 like someone's going to punch your gut. And that is going to be training your core. So this is something you can do while you're doing your squat holds during your warm up. This is going to be a component of what you're doing during your squat as well. And for my knee people, I want to talk about something controversial. I want to talk about the knees over toes. You might have heard we should not let the knees go past the toes in a squat. It's dangerous and it's going to ruin your knees, and that's why you have bad knees. Let me tell you, I want to debunk that. There was some research way back in like the 70s that said, you know, to protect your knees, we actually want to push the butt back more. But unfortunately, fortunately, new research has shown otherwise. And the fact of the matter is, if you're pushing your butt back, then you're not going to be taking the brunt of it into your knees maybe in that squat, but then your lower back is going to be taking more of that weight load, and it's not going to be distributed as evenly. So now the optimal way to squat, and you'll see powerlifters doing this, you'll see really any squatting athlete do this, is the knees over the toes. And not even athletes. You can take a look at your toddler or your baby. When they're squatting, that is how they are squatting. The reason is it's going to distribute more of that weight load evenly, and it's not going to be all pushed backwards like when you're driving your butt back and all the weight is in your heels. Now, here's the really important part. You're not going to rush into knees over toes squats or split squats automatically. Like I said to you earlier in the warm-up, you want to do this gradually. You want to work up so that you feel more and more comfortable bringing your knee further over your toes. Oftentimes, ankle mobility can be the starting issue. So you can place small weight plates underneath your heels. This can help you with your squat. You can do this in your squat holds in your warm-up. This is a great tool to help eliminate that variable. And in terms of knee pain, you want to go to the level that you feel comfortable. So you can slowly increase how low you go, how far your knee goes past your toes. The goal is that you're doing this more and more and more until your quad muscles get stronger, your hamstrings get stronger, and that you can essentially handle more of that knee forward motion. So if you've gathered, the key is going to be to increase gradually. And a great way of doing that is by using box squats. I'm a huge fan of this tool. Contrary to the name, it doesn't actually need to be from a box. You can use, I've seen clients stack up printer paper piles, or you can use anything you have at home. You can use a chair, you can use a stool, whatever. But when you have an object to squat down to, it increases your kinesthetic awareness. So it gives your brain something to aim towards, and this can really help with getting that movement pattern down. So if you're doing a barbell squat, you want to think of the bar following one path down and up. So with your box, place it at a level that you feel comfortable, that you have no knee pain, no back pain, that you feel like is manageable. And then over time, a great way to progress without even increasing your weight is going to be to decrease the height of that box. I love using stackable risers for this if possible. Most gyms have them. You can get them in the aerobic studio section. The last thing I want to say about squatting, guys, is these tips and tricks can be helpful, but it's extremely important to get a personalized approach for you. So this is just general advice. That's my disclaimer. I don't know your body. I haven't seen it move. I don't know your training history. Maybe you pulled a hip flexor in the past. Maybe you had a car accident that led to a back injury. Maybe you carry your purse on one side all day, so one shoulder is up and one is down. Muscle imbalances, weaknesses, biomechanics, your height, your training history, all of this stuff is going to be factored into your protocols. This is also something that I help my clients with. So if you want some help with a specific training program, a warm-up, stretching, mobility, all of the things, the whole package that's going to address your needs specifically, please give me a shout. You can do so by following me on Instagram, Coach Tijana Daly. That is the best place to find me. If you found this helpful, I know you're going to love my Facebook community, Strength Training and Muscle Building for Women. We dive even more deep into this stuff, not just injury prevention, but taking your lifts from so-so or taking your results from so-so to really taking it to that next level. That is really my jam. If you're here, you love this video, make sure to check it out. I will link that below in the description. Thank you so much for joining me in today's video. I had so much fun making this. I can't wait to see you in the next one.